It's the Wolf Media Festival podcast. Today's guests: writer of the screenplay, Alta California, award-winning playwright and screenplay writer, Lynn Elliott. And now, here's your hosts, Kyle Hollingsworth, Richard Wilmore, and Jacquelynn Wolfheart.
Okay, Lynn Elliott is an award-winning writer of books and films. He is the Wolf Media Fest winner for Best Historical Drama Screenplay, and he is here today to talk all about that. Please welcome Lynn Elliott. Hi, Lynn.
Good morning.
All right, I have a question right out the gate. Sorry, Richard, I'm taking over. Okay, so
quick.
you
She said she wasn't good at this, and then she's going to take it over. All right, Whoopi Goldberg, have at it.
I wish young Whoopi was so stunning. Anyways, Lynn, you are from Wales. You were born there.
I was.
And now wrote this script, Alta California, a historical script. What made you want to write about American natives, like actual Native Americans, when you're not even from here? You weren't born here. This isn't your history. What attracted you to it?
Okay, so as I wrote to you one time, my life is a story in a certain way. So I lived in Wales. I was born and raised in Wales. Okay, so bore da, good morning. Anyway, I then went to university in Nottingham, and I wanted to continue with my education. I wanted to get a higher degrees, and so I went to I came to California, and I went to the University of California, Santa Barbara, and there I got my MA and PhD. I then was teaching in the University of California, the California State University in Chico. That's north of Sacramento, about 90 miles north of it. I taught there. I was a professor there for many years. And then I became chair of the English department. I was teaching dramatic literature. And I've never, I have to admit this, I've never had a writing class. Okay, so I really began to pick up. I was teaching Shakespeare. I taught everything from Sophocles and Aristophanes through Sam Beckett and Carol Churchill. So somewhere along the way, by a process of osmosis, I guess, I began to think about the dramatic structure. And there was a particularly heinous murder in my town, Chico. It was a racial murder. And I had all the where, what, I almost said it, where, what, etc. But I wanted to know why. And that led me to writing a play that won awards. And that was the beginning of it. And anyway, let me continue then. So I continued teaching, and I now have to go back a bit. I came from Wales, came from Britain, came to California. And in the first year that I was in California, I was in Santa Ana, okay, which is right by Los Angeles, just south of Los Angeles. And I was going to go to the University of California, but I had to pay out-of-state fees unless I was a resident for 1 year. So for 1 year, I took a class. I decided to not go to the University of California yet. And I thought, what will I going to do? I got an odd job. And I also picked up some classes at the local community college. Okay. And I thought, well, I better know something more about this country, my adopted country, the United States. And so I took a course on political science. I took a course on U.S. history. And believe it or not, this is where it's going to begin. I took this course on U.S. history, and I realized I come from Europe. And in Europe, we learn all the dirty facts. The good facts, the bad facts, the dirty facts. We learn everything. We learn about power. We learn about battles of this brother versus brother, brother versus sister. It's all there, all the dirty linen is in the classes that And I'm sitting in this class in this community college in Santa Ana, a history class, and I'm waiting. I'm waiting. And I got, okay, so I got the Manifest Destiny. I got that. I got the Constitution. I learned about that. And I was waiting. I was waiting for women. I was waiting for Native Americans. I was waiting for blacks. And nothing came. There was nothing. It was all about this. And so, I just sat there listening and had a battle with the instructor, by the way, because I mentioned this. Why don't you bring these up? But in the process, I decided I would go on a little adventure, mental adventure for myself. And I thought, what happened to the California Indians, the California Native Indians? And so I began uh, looking around, and I went back and back and back, thought, when did this begin? When was the bang, that clash when European met California Indian? And of course, I got to the mission era, as it's called. And Father Sarah coming up from what's now Baja California into what was called still part of New Spain. And I researched this, and I got more and more. And I was also writing at the same time other stuff on the side. And I thought, well, there's something in this that's troubling to me. And it was a number of things that were troubling. One is that I began to realize that here it was again, a very glorified, um, sugared uh, image of this moment in California history. What was really happening? And then I came across some books. Obviously, I ran into the books apologizing for Father Sarah, or sort of saying how he was the good father, etc., etc. And still, I'm wondering, what was it like in the missions, really? And then I began to find one particular book that stood out was one by it's Belas. Belas is his name, and it was on a man called Governor Neve. Now I knew that there were problems. Sarah had clashed with previous governors, and then I began to um, read about Neve, who was the third or fourth governor in line. Sarah had got the other ones kicked out, but Neve was a tough one. He couldn't get rid of him, and so Philippe de Neve, um, what was happening? There was a clash. They clashed over money. The money was coming from Spain, from King Carlos. It was he was the one providing the money for the missions. But when it came to the time to, um, justify where the money was going, Sarah was sending it to the Pope. So it bypassed Spain and went to the Pope. So obviously there were problems there. And then again, I'll let you jump in any minute now. But there came a time when I began to realize that things were not as as what's the word I can use? Sort of cozy, decent as they seemed to be. There was violence against the native people. And the more I read about Neve, the more I began to realize there was this real clash here. But I didn't want to just write a history. The history books are written by historians. I
Right.
was a dramatist. And so I thought, well, let me create a fictional character who moves through this landscape and witnesses this clash that goes on. And so I created a Paco Pulido, who is um, he's a made up, he's fictional, but he has witnessed some of the worst elements. His mother was slaughtered in front of his eyes. His tribe was destroyed. He's picked up and taken to a residential school, and we're all finding out about those now, residential schools. And he also got, caught up in this Neve Sarah battle. So there's a couple of things. Please jump in and ask me. Tell me to shut up. And somebody once said to my wife, "I love listening to Lynn because he has a lovely accent," and she said he loves listening to himself as well. So
Lynn
please.
needs his own podcast. Is really
Yeah.
what we're getting at here.
Oh, okay. So feel free. I should tell you that I have finished at the university, but I teach what's called OSHA, lifelong learning, and it's all over the United States. If you're 50 and over, you can take courses, and so that gave me the freedom to teach. And I've been
Cool.
teaching classes on Celtic history because I am a Celt, and Celtic history. And then I taught a class. Well, they asked me to teach a class. They said, "You're teaching Celtic history. What about Celtic myth and Celtic monsters?" And here's another story, because I said, I feel uncomfortable with that. And they said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, I come from a country where if you mention a monster, you give it life." And of course, they all laughed, including my wife. My wife comes from Los Angeles, and she laughed at this. We went back to visit my sister she lives in England, just north of London, Thetford. And they said, "What are you teaching, Lynn?" I said, "They want me to teach a class on Celtic monsters." "Don't do that, Lynn. Don't do that. You bring them into life." And I was justifying it. Anyway, I got a blessing from the great Druid himself, and I taught the class. So that's what
Wow.
I've been doing. I'm teaching all the time. I love learning, and I love teaching. And actually, a story, a screenplay, a winning screenplay, came from that experience as well. A Celtic Horace play. Anyway,
Cool.
which one do you want to talk about?
I want to know what you love about the written word.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, the written word, it fascinates me. I always have been. Coming from a country like Britain, people think that they think everybody speaks English there, and they do and they don't. I'll explain that by saying I can say something to you in English that you will not understand. Okay, I'm speaking. Um, Besides the accents that you hear, everybody's used to the Oxford Cambridge accent, they talk like this. You're used to that, but I'm always been fascinated by accents. And there's one, for example, in Scotland. In Scotland, they say things that you have no idea what they're saying. Here's an example. This is from a Robbie Burns poem. Second the Sakal Macapati Heath, I mail away a Kachida Malay, even the Vareko had the agree at the Magada George's Byra.
Exactly.
And you have no idea what I just said, do you?
I can't wait to watch the closed captions on this one to see what those
Well,
auto-generated closed captions look like.
well, that's one of the funny things about teaching these classes, that's the Celtic classes, is I have to warn them that if ever I'm showing you a YouTube, beware of the subtitles, because and Welsh, they cannot do it. If they say Yachida, how are you? I'm great, thanks, Yachida. I'll say, you'll be lost. Anyway, you can see that I love listening to language. One thing I love doing, to come back to your original question, is once I've quote unquote finished, I love going back and looking at the language and becoming, as well, becoming the character and saying, is this how he would speak? Really, is this how he would speak? And, uh, I get characters who people say you shouldn't use double negatives, for examples, and I get characters that say, hey, I ain't not nothing doing nothing, no how, you know, and I'm
Sounds like
putting
everybody I
myself,
grew up with in Wisconsin.
yeah, I'm putting myself into the character and giving him. Sometimes people do, double, triple negatives, and yeah, so I love language like that and dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So I have a two questions. They don't necessarily go together, but they can maybe kind of go together. I know you've written quite a few different screenplays and theatrical productions. Are they all history based? And is history your secret true love?
I certainly do love history, and what I love, well, it's like history. What is the function of history? And I know that in this country, for example, here in California, uh, Alta California is about the mission era. Now, James Ramos is an assemblyman in California, and he introduced a bill asking for a that something about the mission era be taught and the gold rush be taught in schools. And Governor Gavin Newsom signed it. So in 2025, every school has to teach something about the um, the impact of the mission era and the gold rush upon the indigenous peoples. Now, that is tremendous. It's like, you know, I have been working on this for so long, and finally it's like it's coming here. Now, on the other side of the continent in Florida, they had actually, we've got people who are saying that history should be euthanized, maybe that's a bad word or a good word,
Made
but
up. They like
yeah,
made up history.
leave out certain things. I've forgotten the term they use, but there's no need to remind everybody about slavery. There's no need to remind everybody about the treatment of Native Americans, the treatment of women, etc. And so we've got two. What does history teach us? What's its function? That fascinates me. I don't know whether I answered that question.
No, it was good. So the other part was, are your other writings also related to historical information, or are they you just write about whatever you feel like writing about?
It's interesting how you get that prompt. Let me give you another one. I'm teaching at the university. Okay, I was teaching at the university, and I'm teaching a class on Pirandello. And I was doing modern drama, and Pirandello, Henry IV by Pirandello, I was teaching that. And one of the things that you have to do is to give some sort of background on the playwright that you're discussing. And of course, I got to the point where, and I said this a couple of times, Pirandello's wife, Antonietta, the last 40 years of her life was spent in an insane asylum. Along comes this little co-ed. She comes to my office and she said, can you give me a topic to write? And I said, off the top of my head, I said, I always chat on about Antonietta being in an insane asylum. Why was she sent there? And she said, oh, that's a good one. And she left. And of course, Lynn is sitting there saying, why was she sent there? What? And so a week later, this poor girl comes back to my office and she said, all the books on Pirandello have been taken out of the library. And I had to admit, I said, I'm sorry, I'm the one who took them. I said, once I gave you that topic, I was fascinated. And so I've written, I eventually wrote a piece. I wrote it originally as a drama, and it all took place in the asylum in Rome, the asylum that she was sent to. And she is trying to put on her play about her life, to tell her lived experience, as opposed to the reason she was sent there. Anyway, I developed that into that was a prize-winning play. I developed it into a movie script as well, and it's won surprisingly. I think it's won a lot in Italy. They
Nice.
like
That's
it,
cool.
and it's called Pirandello's Wife. Originally, I called it A Woman Called Antonietta, and then the woman who put on the play at Chico State, she said, I always remember what she said to me, Lynn, how do you know so much about women? And I said, I didn't take the cop out is George Bernard Shaw's great answer, well, not great, but he said, I pretend they're men, something like that. But anyway, I said, I just wondered to myself, Why was she put there? And the reason that was given is that her father was extremely jealous. When his marriage to his wife, the mother of Antonietta, her mother died in childbirth. So Antonietta never saw her mother. Um, and the reason she died, one of the reasons she died in childbirth, was the father was so intensely jealous, he would not allow any doctor to see his naked wife. And this was the reason. And so he would never allow this. And so what happened was when the time came to send Antonietta off to the asylum, that was the excuse that was used. You've inherited jealousy, an insane jealousy. In Italian, it's called gelosia suprema, okay, which, forgive me my pronunciation, but you can figure it out, supreme jealousy. That was the reason. So in other words, nature versus nurture. Jealousy is a part of your nature, and that's why I'm sending you away. You've been so intense. And then I'm thinking to myself, but what about the life she lived? She didn't know her mother. She was brought up in an asylum. Did she have a choice as to marrying Luigi? No, that was made for her. The dowry was given to Luigi's father. He deposited that money in a sulfur mine and lost it all. So she's married to a man. I don't know whether it was her choice or not, but she had no say in the matter, shall I say. Her dowry is lost. And then I thought all these events in her life, the lived experience. Her husband, Luigi, he taught in a school for girls. And before you get suspicious, he used to get little notes from the students telling them how much they loved him and how gorgeous he was, etc. And he would keep those notes and he put them in his pocket. And of course, Antonietta found the notes. So can you see where I'm going with this? I'm juggling now between, was she jealous because it's inherited from her father, or did she have just cause in her lived experience? We know that Luigi had a particular actress, Marta Abba, who he regarded as, she is beautiful, she's perfect for my, etc. And he used her, and I don't know, So I've just played around with that, and I wrote a movie version of it, which is called Pirandello's Wife. I think I told you that my original title was A Woman Called Antonietta, and then Donna, who put on the show at Chico State when we were just workshopping it, she said, nobody would know who she is. You've got to call her Pirandello's Wife. And that was another spur for me. I thought, this poor woman, she's only known as Pirandello's wife.
That's messed up.
So, and the story of so many. Where have we got to? There's so many others.
I want to switch to awards. You have won multiple awards for your work. You won our award for Best Historical Drama Screenplay.
Right.
I want to know how that feels. And since you just said that you have never taken a class, have you ever suffered from imposter syndrome, or I'm curious about that.
I'll write a play about that. Right.
Give them ideas.
No, interesting. I guess no is the easy answer, but it's almost like it deserves a better answer than no.
No, I like that answer.
Let me answer this by saying I was teaching. I grew up with, and I was teaching drama all the time. So I was, by osmosis, I said, I was taking in all of this. I was taking in something like, what do? You have to have you have to have an antagonist, and you have to have a protagonist, etc., etc. I was taking this in, and it was becoming part of. I was seeing how Shakespeare puts together his dramas. For example, in Hamlet, he doesn't start off bang like that. He starts off with a guard, and the guard says, "Who's there?" And you think, here's a minor character. In fact, he's not. I don't think he plays much longer. Uh, and why does he do this? And it became fascinating. And I must say, to answer your question, that has been extremely important to me. And I would recommend that. If you want to know how to write, Shakespeare will tell you. Ben Jonson will tell you. Ben Jonson wrote a play called Bartholomew Fair. And it's about people coming to a fair. And you either love the place or you hate the place.
Mm-hmm.
So the fair itself is a character. So what does Lynn do? Lynn thinks, what would be a comparable? The rodeo. So I wrote a play called, I wrote a musical originally, and then I wrote a screenplay called The Rodeo, which is, and I thought to myself, okay, now I've got who would go to the rodeo? I'm trying to answer your question by showing my process.
No, I love it.
Who would go to a rodeo who would be really out of place? Somebody from New York who's a socialite, is a very rich woman. I'll make her her widow. Okay, now why has she come? So can you see what I'm doing? This is my process. I'm constantly asking myself questions. Why? Why does she go to the rodeo? Well, her daughter has fallen in love with a handsome young cowboy who happens to, she went to a university in, where was it? Wyoming, I think. Yeah, Wyoming. She went to the university and fell in love with a gorgeous cowboy. Well, of course, the mother has to go to bring her daughter back to civilization. Get her away from this rustic background. Well, of course, the son is he is the son of a very handsome cowboy, an older man who is widowed. And you can see where I'm going with this.
Is this a Hallmark movie?
Bang, bang, bang. And that has won awards galore as well. It was a comedy, and I had a lot of fun writing that because, well, I'll cut it short and just say at one moment, this woman who's from New York and is got her fancy dress. She's way out of place immediately. If you've ever been to a rodeo, I mean, people do not dress in fancy cowboy uniforms, okay? But she's out of place. And so a clown convinces her, the rodeo clown convinces her that she's out of place. And the best thing she can do is he can help her. And he dresses her as a clown. And she ends up in the ring with a bull.
Brilliant.
Oh, yeah. And who saves her from the bull? The
handsome cowboy, yeah.
You can see. Yeah, this
has this been performed, or you've written it and it's won awards, but has it been performed as well?
It's been performed as a musical, and it was quite recent, but it has won awards in the world of sending out awards, rodeo. I'd have to check on what awards it's won, but it's won awards for comedy.
It sounds fun.
When you're writing things like movies and theater, how involved are you in the making of that piece of work? Or are you just, do you write and then you hand it over to someone and they take it? How does that work?
Well, this is where I come crashing to Mother Earth, to reality. Yeah, I write screenplays, scripts, and I send them off, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait. And I know that many of your listeners have been in the same place, and they wait and they wonder. And fortunately, I have a couple of friends who I contact via Zoom One is in Germany, one is in Florida, and we contact and we talk to each other about these dilemmas that we have. It's difficult. The next step, something like Alta California is a huge undertaking. It's it's something for a very powerful, a very well-known director, might I say. I just had a comment back about Pirandello's wife, and somebody said this would be a wonderful, award-winning role for a woman. She has to play in the movie version the young Antonietta, and she has to be in the asylum as the old Antonietta trying to tell her story. So I get these wonderful comments. It's like I can tell you, like the Nickel Fellowship has written to me and said,
Cool. Wow.
Antonietta is sorry, wrong one. God, I get these mixed up. Alta California, they said it's a. I see. It's actually here, close at hand. I don't want to lose you. It's close at hand. They said something. Oh, I've had so many comments on that, and these are not just from the Nickel Fellowship. Here's what the Nickel Fellowship said: there is meaning here. There were themes having to do with racism and faith and the nature of both. The script also seems to be saying something about humanity, and this was well integrated into the piece and arose out of it organically. And it's wonderful to get that, and it's encouraging, but at the same time, you're always waiting for that somebody to come along and knock on the door and say, "Hey, I've heard about this. I'd love to see it," and I do have people who are looking at my work,
Cool.
but no, yeah, you have to have a lot of faith that one day, one day something will happen.
So
I
I
didn't.
think I saw you have a website, and on your website you have some like little clips of the it's like not an actual play, but you have clips of your scripts on there in video form. Am I remembering you right?
Yeah. Okay. I have a website called altacaliforniamovie.com. Okay, one long word, altacaliforniamovie.com. And you can find all of this stuff that I'm talking about, including the reference to Governor Newsom and including many references to Sarah, some of the things that contemporaries said about Sarah, that he was very prone to um, uh, physical violence towards the natives. Um, I'm slightly deviating from your question, but I'll come back to it, I promise. Um, I I feel for Captain Philippe Deneuve. I don't know I'm not going to put you on the spot, but how many Californians have ever heard of Captain Philippe Deneuve? And the answer is, it's like Shakespeare. Remember the image of the bucket and the well from Richard II, that the one goes down and one goes up. Um, as Sarah rose to become a saint eventually, Neve has disappeared, and he's California's forgotten man. There's a statue of him in Los Angeles. There is a library, but um, he's a sad figure. He was very humane. Absolute clash with Sarah on how to treat the natives. He believed very differently from Sarah, and he is buried somewhere in Chihuahua in Mexico. He's buried there, and he has to be buried with no. There's just a very small, um, a, s- a small slab there. Nothing like Sarah, big ceremony. Pope Francis comes to it, etc. And he's there. The other thing that's really sad about Nev is that he left his wife. He had married her, and King Carlos just had so much trust in him. He sent him to California, and he never went back. He always wanted to return. He kept begging King Carlos to let him return. He never did. 28 years. He never saw his wife, and he died before before returning to Spain. And I have that moment in the script where he, addressing Paco, he pulls out a piece of hair and he says, "My friends send it to me. My wife has died," and that's it. It's very sad. What was the question? I'm sorry.
We were talking about your website. How else can people find you? What besides your website?
I have one called Alta California movie.com. I have one called pirandelloswife.com. I have another one that's called Lynn H. Elliott 47.com. And it's got all of my stuff on there. But if you want to look at my Facebook, you can see all the winnings as they come up. I put them on. I tend to stay away from, on Facebook and Twitter, I tend to stay away from, "I have just entered this," that kind of thing, or "I have just been selected." I wait till I get an award. And it depends if it's a semi-finalist from a well-known, then I'll put it on there. But you can just look me up on Facebook, and you'll see all of these winnings and things like that. And there's also stuff about me, how this guy came from going all over the world. Is 6,000 miles away from where he was born and raised. Yeah. Yeah. So that's where you can find so much of mine, or you can write to me. Lynn Elliott at csuchico.edu. That's me.
I thought you were going to give us your address. I was going to be like, no,
Yeah.
sir, don't be doing that. No, don't give us your address.
I must admit that I know why you said that, because I do get some strange letters. One of which is they don't realize I'm male. Lynn is a very common male name in Wales. Y is a vowel in Welsh. But so many people will write to me and say, dear madam, and my wife's name, by the way, is Danny. So you can guess we got Danny, and we get him mixed up all the time, but I'm used to that. And then there are people who are, I don't know, they're living in somewhere and they're looking for a husband, and I'm, hey, bye-bye. Yeah.
That's a movie. Well, thank you for being here. And you're a bottomless pit of information, which I love. We could talk to you for hours, so I hope you come back and probably win another award and then come back on the podcast.
Oh, I'd love to do it. As I say, I do tend to talk a lot.
Well, it would be a very boring podcast if no one talked. So we appreciate
right.
that.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in Welsh. Okay. No, I'm going to do it in Welsh.
Oh, okay. Ready? Okay.
Read after me. Nadolig llawen y blwyddyn newydd â chi.
Yep.
You got that?
I'm not even going to try it.
Got it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was like one of the easiest interviews, I think, because he answered all the questions before being asked. It was nice.
That was the Lynn Elliott podcast, everyone, taking over for 2025.
Yeah, I love it. I loved it. That was he sounds like he has like a brain that just thinks of everything all the time. And I think that is pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah, his brain is firing at all times.
Yeah. But I've never had somebody walk us through their process like he did. He literally walked us like step by step. I'm like, I could just be writing down what he says, and that's the next winning script. Right there.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was super awesome. I wish I had more to say about that other than it was super awesome.
What a Christmas gift he was.
He was.
An early Christmas gift.
An early Christmas gift. So everybody listen to it twice and share it with your friends and subscribe and all the things. And thanks for.
And if the full interview goes out unedited, you might want to listen to it 3 times because there was a lot of information.
I'm really going to try to get some translations down there and see if we can get that. That was cool, though. Oh, that was super cool.
He's cool.
And actually, it's kind of interesting, really, how other countries do their history versus America. And it's sad, but to have somebody else from a different country want to know more about us than what we want to know about us, kind of sad. But cool. Yeah. I'm glad he's into it. But
podcast in and of itself.
Yeah, for real. But anyways, thanks everybody. Have a good night.
See ya.
Bye. Wolf Media Festival Podcast with Kyle Hollingsworth, Richard Wilmore, and Jacquelynn Wolfheart. Produced and edited by me. I'm Jacquelynn Wolfheart. Don't forget to check out the links in the description to find ways you can connect with our guests. Thanks for checking us out today and tuning in every week wherever you get your podcasts.